It's Affy, and today I am here to do my November wrap up. This year is already almost over. It is insane. I read 6 books in November, so I'm kind of on the upswing. I'm getting back into it. I'm really proud of myself. But it was a good reading month. I had some really good books that I read in November, so I'm really excited to talk about them with you guys. All right, just gonna hop in. So, the first book I read in November is a continuation, a new series, but a continuation of the Sins for All Seasons series. So, if you've read that, this book is like the beginning of a series that's a spin-off from the Sins for All Seasons series. But this is Scoundrel of My Heart. This is part of the Once Upon a Dukedom series. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This was really, really good. So we've got Griff. Griffith is his name, but he goes by Griff. And then Lady Catherine. And Griff and Catherine don't really get along. She's the best friend of his sister. He just kind of loves to mess with her. He loves to kind of push her buttons and rile her up. And she just finds him really irritating. So one day, her parents decide they are going to go on like a delayed honeymoon. And they have her to stay with Althea, which is Griff's sister. So she's staying at Griff's house for like a week. And they finally come to an understanding with one another where he's kind of made fun of her all this time, but he kind of decides, you know what, I'm gonna let up and not be so annoying to her. And so she kind of warms to him and they start to realize that they kind of like each other. There's a duke in town who has put a letter out in the news saying that he wants women to write to him and tell him why they should marry him. Griff ends up writing to him on her behalf. The guy ends up choosing her to be the woman that he hopefully marries. This book was amazeballs. I really love Griff. He is a sweetheart. This man waxes poetry. Like when he wrote to that duke, like the things that he said about her were just so, like, I don't even know what to call it. Like, he was just so poetic in the way that he talked about her. And it's kind of obvious why the guy chose her when you read like what he wrote. They had a few moments together, well, quite a few moments together, unchaperoned. I like to say unchaperoned. There are just so many moments like that in historical romance books where they're just unchaperoned. And I can't, I just, with this book, they had like a whole entire week of being unchaperoned. Somebody has to realize these two are missing and like alone together. But no, they spent an entire week. Catherine is pretty blunt, and at first I didn't really like that about her. It was just kind of like, okay, girl, like, you could be a little more gentle in the way that you talk to people. But at a certain point, it was actually kind of hilarious to me. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars all around from start to finish. This just had me hooked. And like I said, Griff is amazing. Yeah, that man can wax poetic. He's lyrical. He is a real sweetheart, and I just loved him. Catherine, at first I didn't love, but she kind of grew on me, and by the end of it I was like, okay, I get her. And then the story itself was just really, really good. I loved the Duke. The Duke was a very interesting character. Apparently he gets his own book as well. So this one was just so much fun and so sweet. So yeah, I had to give it 5 stars. So the next book I read is actually a novella. This is the last book in the Scoundrels of St. James series. This is the Last Wicked Scoundrel. So obviously by Lorraine Heath. And this one, it wasn't very long, but it packed a punch. This book packed a punch. It was 130 pages, so quite short. But there was a lot that happened. In this book, we have Winnie, who's a duchess, and Dr. Graves. He is one of the children that grew up on the streets of St. James. He goes by Dr. William Graves because he used to rob graves. In the first book in the series, Catherine, who is the heroine of the first book, is basically trying to help her friend Winnie get out of an abusive relationship. Her husband beats her and she's just treated horribly in this marriage. And the first book is specifically about Catherine trying to get Winnie out of this situation. She gets beat really bad by her husband, and Dr. Graves kind of takes care of her when this happens. It takes like, I think, an entire week or something for her to get better, and he checks in on her every single day, and they spend all this time together talking. And so there's a lot of mutual pining between the two of them, but he's a doctor and he's got this whole thing about he doesn't want to date his patients. She invites him to her most recent ball, and he shows up and they go for a walk in the garden and he kisses her, and everything just kind of goes on from there. Like, he cannot stay away from this woman after this happens. It kind of goes on from there. There's a whole backstory with her husband, and it comes to a head. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I did want there to be more of a wrap up, and like, not necessarily like going back and rehashing all of their stories, but I wanted there to be a little bit more about the other couples in the series, like just a little like view of them and their lives now, but they were barely in this book. I was like, this is the last book. There should have been more about them. Like, they were in the book, but it wasn't really about them and their spouses. So one of the things that I thought was interesting about this book was that William's story was very similar to Swindler's story, in that he basically got one of his parents killed. And it's one of the reasons that he ended up on the streets. So I really like this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Like I said, a lot of action, a lot going on. For such a short book, it was very entertaining. So I really had fun with this one. So the next book I read was by Lisa Kleypas. This is Worth Any Price. And this one has a step back. We have Charlotte, or Lottie as her nickname is, and Nick Gentry. And Lottie has run away from home. She has been set to marry this man named Lord Radnor for like since she was a child. But this man is obnoxious. He tells her everything he wants her to do, and he expects her to follow it. He tells her what to wear, what to eat, how to speak, just like he controls everything about her life. And so when he puts her in school, she runs away, and she makes her way to Westcliff from the Wallflowers, and becomes a companion to Lady Westcliff. Nick is a Bow Street runner, and he's been hired by Lord Radnor to find Lottie. And he's good at his job, so he does. He finds her. She doesn't realize who he is, but he's flirty with her, and they kind of hang out a little bit. They chit-chat. They have a few moments together unchaperoned. More than one. And eventually Westcliff, who is not an idiot, finds out who Nick is, and he basically calls them both to his office, and he tells Lottie, he's like, look, This is who Nick is. He's here for you. He's here to take you back to whoever this man is that you're supposed to marry. Do you want to go back to this man? She's like, absolutely not. So Westcliff offers to marry her. He's like, look, if it will save you, I will offer you marriage. And she's like, I don't want to do that to you. Like, I don't want you to put your whole entire like life aside to marry me. Like, I'm not gonna accept. And so then he leaves her in the room with Nick because Nick is like, I have an idea. Let me talk to her. And so she talks to Nick, and Nick offers to marry her. He offers to marry her whilst, I won't tell you, he's doing some things while he's offering her marriage. He's doing some things. And she somehow agrees, and he takes her back to London, and they get married. And Lord Radnor is not happy about it when he finds out. This book was very interesting. A lot of it was about Nick and his past. And he's very cagey about his past. So he is actually a Viscount, but he's been hiding it for years. People thought that he died, and so he's just continued to pretend like he's dead, and he's just a regular old Bow Street runner, and he doesn't want to give that up. He loves his life. But then his brother-in-law is basically like, look, you need to come out and say who you are. You need to become the Viscount that you were meant to be. Like, you are part of society. So he's forced to go back to being a Viscount, which he fucking hates that shit. He does not want to be part of the upper echelon of society. He thinks that they're all assholes, and so he's fighting this with every fiber of his being. But his brother-in-law is a very powerful man, and he's not necessarily a police. I think he might be like a magistrate or something like that. And so he basically doesn't have a choice. Things get very interesting. Nick is definitely very much he's one of those guys that he's very cagey. He really keeps his secrets to himself, and he's got so many inner demons that he flips out. Like, anytime she asks him questions about his past, he like loses it and leaves the house and like doesn't come home for like a day. That he would like run away and leave her by herself, and this is like his new wife. There was a lot of fucking in this book. There was a lot. Like, these two are screwing all the damn time. Even when he like gets upset and leaves and comes home, he still has enough energy, despite being angry, to screw his wife. And like, if I was upset, I wouldn't want to touch you, but this man is like, I don't care. I'm pissed off, but I'm still gonna have sex with my wife anyways. They are screwing all the damn time. And I don't know if I found it funny or if it was just like, it was entertaining. It was very entertaining. But they were going at it like rabbits the entire book, and I just thought it was entertaining. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was lots of fun. Nick is a tortured hero, but he's still a sweetheart at the end of the day. So, yeah. The next book I read in November is by Kate Bateman. This is To Catch an Earl. This is part of the Bow Street Bachelors series. And in this story, we have Alex, who's an earl, and Emmeline, but she goes by Emmy. And Emmy and her family are thieves. They have been, well, her father was a thief, and he basically trained his kids on how to be thieves as well. And they have stolen so many jewels from museums, from people's homes, from the royalty, and so they've definitely had it out for this family. People have been trying to find this family for a long time and trying to figure out like who they are. They've been contacted by this man who is an adversary of their father's. He is the son of a man who was also a thief who didn't like their father, and so this guy is trying to get back at them, and so he's basically told them, I will out you if you don't get these specific jewels. Emmy and her brother are kind of stuck going out and doing more thievery, which, you know, they hadn't done in years. Their father, it kind of ended with their father. Once their father died, they stopped. The thief is known as the Nightjar, which is her nickname. Her brother is kind of crippled. I think he uses a cane or something. So he can't actually like steal anything. So she's the one that does the actual robbing. And then her brother and this other woman that they work with, they go and they kind of scope everything out and make the plan on what they're going to do. And then she goes and she does the actual stealing. And what she does is she'll steal the item and she'll put a feather there. And that's like her signature thing, is she'll leave a feather behind where she stole something. Alex is an earl, but he also works for the Bow Street Runners. Emmy and her family, they came to London from France, and there's a thief there who works with the police now, who knows a lot about their family, and so he's able to get information about their family. And he realizes they might be the ones that are stealing all these jewels, and so he decides he's going to focus his attention on their family. Alex and Emmy had met at a masquerade party years ago. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years prior. And because she had been wearing a mask, he didn't know who she was. But he just kind of fell for this woman who he never knew what she looked like. And so he's basically been like hoping to find this woman again someday. And for whatever reason, he can remember her fragrance, which I was like, it's been 2 or 3 years. Like, who remembers a scent after 2 or 3 years? But he can remember her fragrance. And when he bumps into Emmy, he realizes that fragrance is the fragrance of the woman that he danced with. And he is both really, really excited and really, really upset, because he realizes that the woman that he's been looking for all these years might also be the suspect in his case. And he's like, yay! Oh, shit. No. And so you kind of feel for him, because he's going through like all these emotions of just being like wanting to be around her and wanting to like spend time with her, but also like reminding himself like, this is my job and I'm supposed to catch the bad guy, and I'm pretty sure she's the bad guy. And it just made for a very interesting tale. She really enjoyed messing with this man. Like, she knew he was on her tail, but she liked the fact that he was chasing her. It's like a game of cat and mouse for sure. Eventually he is able to catch her for real. And then he has to decide if he's going to throw her in jail and see her get hanged, or if he's gonna find a way to help her get out of the situation. So this one was a lot of fun. I really liked it. If you can tell, I'm smiling like a little fiend, because I just had so much fun with this one. I haven't read anything like this before, where the couple are on opposite sides of the law. So it made it really, really fun and highly entertaining. There was a scene in here where they're at a ball and she has just robbed the house next door, and he knows that she's robbed this house, and he's trying to find the actual jewel, and he's like, I'm pretty sure she's got it on her body somewhere. And so they're making out, and he's like slowly stripping her as he tries to find this jewel, and she realizes what he's doing, and so she finds a way to like hide it while they're making out. And by the time he finally like stops, she's damn near half like undressed, and he just kind of is like, all right, so I'm done now. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. I'm gonna go. And so she's just standing there with like half her clothes off because this man has like ruined her entire ensemble. I love that scene. That was a really fun scene. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars as well. So much fun. Like I said, the whole cat and mouse game just kept me very entertained, and then on top of that there's the romance, and so it was just a lot of fun. I really had a lot of fun with this one. The next book I read in November was by Loretta Chase. This is the 3rd book in the Dressmaker series. This is Vixen in Velvet, and this one is about the last This one is about the last sister, the youngest sister. Her name is Leonie Noiro. And Leonie is the redhead. So we've got a brunette, a blonde, and a redhead, and they're all sisters. And so Leonie is the redhead. She's also the youngest, and she meets Simon at the museum. She's there looking at a painting, and this painting is owned by Simon's family, and they've, rented it out to the museum, and she thinks this piece of art is just the most beautiful thing she's ever seen. It's like a Greek painting, and she's just like, oh my God, this painting is amazing. And then she hears somebody talking to her, and she looks over, and it's Simon, and she's like, oh my God, he might be a Greek god in real life, because he's so handsome that she's just like in awe of him. He sees her and is like, oh my God, this woman is beautiful. Like, wow. They clearly immediately start off having a thing for each other. Simon has 2 cousins, and they're on opposite sides of his family. So the one cousin, Swanton, is a poet, and Swanton is really popular. Like, all the ladies love him, and all the women just follow him around because he's a poet, and they think he's so sexy. And then his other cousin is named Gladys, and Gladys she's kind of rude and obnoxious. He and Leonie make a bet that if she can basically get Gladys married off, or at least engaged by the end of the month, she will get the painting that he loaned to the museum. If she can't get Gladys to either get married and or engaged by the end of the month, then she has to spend 2 weeks with him alone, unchaperoned, somewhere of his choosing. She gets to work, and she dresses Gladys in all this stuff because she's a dressmaker, and her and her sisters, they really know how to work a number and like make a girl look good. So she's like, I got this. Like, I can get her married in the next 2 to 3 weeks. You'll see. You're not getting that 2 weeks with me. Simon, when I say this man has a thing for this woman, he just finds everything she does to be highly entertaining. He's constantly like watching her reactions to things and like getting a chuckle out of her just her personality as a whole. He just finds her very, very fascinating, and I was just like, I want a man to look at me that way. I want a man to find me that fascinating. But when it gets to closer to the end of the book and they're talking about marriage, she basically doesn't want to because of her business. She doesn't want to lose her business, And I just found it hilarious because she was willing to throw all her morals aside, and then it comes down to her business and she's like, no, 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 you ain't messing with my business. That's where the fine line is. You are not messing with my business. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars. Leonie is definitely a cool character. She's very stoic, or at least she tries to be very stoic, and kind of keep this air about her. But when it comes to Simon, all that shit goes out the window. She can't contain herself with him. I really like this series. This was a fun series as a whole. I think there's one more book left. In fact, there is, because I'm currently reading it. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for the last book. I'm enjoying it so far. It's a lot of fun as well. So maybe I'll do like a review of this series. I've been considering doing like series reviews. So I might do that for this series, just because it was a really fun series and I really enjoyed myself with this one. The last book that I read in November was by Sherry Thomas. This is the second book in, I don't know the name of the series, but this is Ravishing the Heiress. And in this book we have Millicent, or Millie, and Fitz. This book starts when they are teenagers. I think she's about 16 or 17 and he's 18 or 19. And Millie and Fitz are basically forced to marry one another. Millie falls in love with him and she's excited to marry him. But Fitz has a woman, or a girl, that he loves, that he had hoped to marry, and he wasn't supposed to have been an earl in general. His, I think, uncle dies and leaves him the earldom. And so he becomes an earl at a very young age. Like I said, he's only like 18 or 19 years old, and the earldom is broke as hell, and so he has to marry for money. While he doesn't hate Millie, he's not happy about the fact that he has to marry her. She decides, she basically puts the idea out there like, okay, let's just get married and, give ourselves 6 to 8 years before we make it official and start trying for an heir. And you can do whatever you want up until that point. Shortly before the 8 years is up, he comes across his young love. Her name is Isabel, and she had been married and now she's widowed, and he goes to her and they basically decide that they want to have a life together again. So she wants to be his mistress. They still love one another, and he's just willing to put everything aside to be with her, and she's fine with becoming his mistress. Like, they still love one another. He lets Millie know, like, yeah, she's in town, and yeah, I want to be with her again. Millie, having been just the patient wife this entire time, she's like, okay, well, if that's what you want, that's what you want. I'm not going to stop you. And he's just kind of like, wow, my wife is great. Like, she just kind of lets me do whatever. But she's like dying inside and has been for 8 years. And he just isn't aware that, he's putting her through all this hell. But they have become friends over the years. Like, they really do enjoy spending time together. Like, they have a business together and they work well together doing their business. And they're just really good friends. And so in a lot of ways, this is like a friends to lovers romance. They go from being hardcore, just like, yeah, even though we're married, we're not screwing or anything like that. So we're just buddy old pals. And at some point we'll get to, the screwing part, but right now we're just friends. But once they start screwing, things start to change. Fitz starts to realize that he might have feelings for her, and he eventually has to make a decision between Isabel and Millie. I really feel for Millie throughout this book. He doesn't mean to, but he puts her in these situations that just make her feel horrible for the fact that she married him. And you know, she feels like she kept him from his one true love, despite the fact that she herself loves him. And you just feel bad for this poor girl. She's having to sit here and pretend like she's okay with him, you know, having women on the side. And, you know, when Isabel comes back into his life, you know, you can tell that she's just gutted by the fact that this woman is entering his life again. You know, she feels like he's never truly going to be mine. He treated her horribly during their honeymoon. Their honeymoon is probably one of the worst. Oh my God, this man was a fucking mess during their honeymoon. Like he really made it very clear that he did not want to marry her. He treated her like shit during their honeymoon. It was a lot. This book kind of goes back and forth between modern time and kind of what's happened in the past. So it starts at when they met, and then it jumps to the current day, and then it jumps back to when they got married, and then it jumps to current day, and then it jumps back to their honeymoon, and then it comes back to current day, and then it jumps back to you know, them starting or having a business together, and then it jumps back to current day. So it kind of goes back and forth. So if that's not your thing, just know that that's how the story is told. I don't know how you go 8 years not realizing that somebody that you're that close to is in love with you. So yeah, I was calling him a dummy throughout the entire book. I was like, you fucking idiot. I gave it 4.5 stars. It did irritate me a little bit with the jumping back and forth, but yeah, it was still really good. I hadn't read anything like this before, and so it definitely piqued my interest. I picked the book up because of the blurb in the back. I was like, huh, okay, so marriage in trouble, but not really, but friends to lovers story. Like it just kind of felt like it was a weird mix and a weird concoction of tropes. And so I had to pick it up and read it, and I really did enjoy it. So yeah, this was the last book that I read in November. So those are all the books that I read in November. If you made it to the end of this probably very long video, leave me a bottle emoji and leave me some messages in the comment section if you have read any of these books, what you thought of them. If you've read any of these authors, let me know some books by them that you enjoy. Because these are all authors that I really, really love that I read this month. And just let me know what you're reading in general, what you're loving. I'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. Bye.